So continuing on with the material, we're going to probably finish the book today. It's called Collection of Goodness. It's a compilation of lessons given by the great scholar and scholar of hadith, scholar of Islamic law, scholar of the fundamentals, as Shaykh Abdullah ibn Muhammad al-Harari rahmatullahi alayh. So we're on page 302. This is volume 1 from the Tuwaiba Books Publishing House, which is a great publishing house for Islamic material in the English language. They have accurate translations of classical works in Al-Islam, and they also provide publications of compilations of works for the student of knowledge in the English language. So page 302, this lesson was given by Al-Hafiz, the scholar of Islamic law, Al-Shaykh Abdullah, the son of Muhammad Al-Abdari. May Allah have mercy upon him, and it is about the attribute of kalam of Allah, and that it does not resemble the speech of the creations. The lesson was heard by Al-Shaykh Samir, the son of Sami, Al-Qadi, Al-Shaykh Jamil, the son of Muhammad Halim, Al-Shaykh Nabil, the son of Muhammad Al-Sharif, Al-Shaykh Abdul Razzaq, the son of Muhammad Al-Sharif, and Al-Shaykh Muhammad, the son of Mustafa Al-Bakri, rahimahumullahu ta'ala, wa hafidhahumullahu ta'ala. Shaykh Abdullah, may Allah have vast mercy upon him, said, all praise is due to Allah, the Lord of the worlds. To him belong the endowments and proper commendations. May Allah raise the rank of our Master Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. So that's the basic introduction that the Muslim scholars that they usually do when they start something, either an authoring or a lesson or a speech. Thereafter, since it has been confirmed that Allah does not resemble anything in any way whatsoever, by the textual proof from the Quran and the intellectual proof, the mental evidence, we understand from the two proofs that Allah is attributed with a kalam, speech, that is not created like the speech of the creations. It is not something that is subject to interruption, rather it has no interruptions, and it is not something that is renewed from time to time, just as the life of Allah is eternal and everlasting, and it is not subject to interruption and change. Also, the kalam of Allah has no interruptions. Therefore, it is not a letter or a sound, and it is not a language, not Arabic and not other than Arabic among the languages, because languages are created. They were non-existent, and then Allah made them exist. Allah created them. So, like we've mentioned before, the position of Ahlus Sunnah is that we confirm the attribute of Allah, in this case Al-Kalam, and we say that it is an eternal and everlasting attribute of Allah that is not a sound, letter, or language. So we have the proper stance, the moderate position, because we are a nation of moderation. We do not negate the attribute, and we do not attribute similarity to Allah. So who are the ones that negate the attribute? They're called Al-Mu'tazila. They negate that Allah is attributed with attributes, and also other deviant groups. They negate the attributes of Allah. We don't. Ahlus Sunnah, we do not negate the attribute of Allah. We say Allah is attributed with kalam, speech. And at the same time, we do not say that the attribute of Allah is a sound, letter, or a language. Like who says that amongst the deviant groups? The body worshippers, those who liken Allah to the creations, the Wahhabis, those who today they call themselves Salafis, to try and deceive the people into thinking that they're the ones who are actually following the pious predecessors, the first 3 generations, when in reality they're not. So these people, the so-called Salafis, the Wahhabis, they claim that Allah speaks Arabic, na'udhu billah, and at the same time they say that Allah is not like us, na'udhu billah. So we see that their rhetoric is contradictory. It is a gaslighting rhetoric. They're telling you that God speaks Arabic, and then they're telling you that it's not like us. Na'udhu billah. So they believe that the words that we recite from the Mus'haf, the Arabic words and sounds that are written in the book of the Quran, they believe that is the attribute of Allah, وَالْعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ, which is blasphemous, of course. The proper stance, the Sunni position, the position of Ahlul Sunnati wal Jama'ah, is that Allah Ta'ala is attributed with a kalam that is not like ours. Yani, has no beginning, it has no end, it's not a sound, it's not a letter, it's not a language, it has no interruptions, no segments. So this is the what we're saying. Yani. The proof from the Quran that clears Allah from being attributed with a kalam that is a letter and sound is this verse from Surah Ash-Shura, لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٍ. And the intellectual proof is that had the kalam of Allah been created and existed bit by bit, parts coming before others, then His kalam would have been similar to the speech of others. And had it been possible for the speech of Allah to be with letters and sounds that are subject to interruption, it would have been possible for Allah to be attributed with all the attributes of the creations, like inability, weakness, death, addition, and subtraction. By these two proofs, we know that Allah is attributed with a kalam that is not a letter or sound. It is not possible to picture it and imagine it in our minds, just like we are not able to imagine the being of Allah. Hence, it is obligatory upon us to believe that Allah is attributed with kalam that is not like our speech. So, the ayah, لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٍ, it is an absolute negation of similarity. So it's saying that there is nothing like Allah in any way, not even for one aspect. So even if the person says something about Allah that is not identical to us, they say, let's say, they say that Allah speaks a language, but not identically to how we do. We say, just from the aspect of speaking a language, there is similarity. Even if you say, we can't imagine it, or even if you say, it's not identical to us, we say that this is a similarity. Another proof from the Quran that Allah is not attributed with a kalam that is letters and sounds is what was revealed in the book of Allah, that Allah judges the creation on Judgment Day in a short time. In the Quran, in Surah Al-An'am, وَهُوَ أَسْرَعُ الْحَاسِبِينَ, this negates for His speech to be with letters and sounds, because had His kalam been with letters and sounds that He judges the creation with on Judgment Day, He would have been the slowest of judges and not the one who judges on Judgment Day in a short period of time. So the ayah, وَهُوَ أَسْرَعُ الْحَاسِبِينَ, this ayah is evidence that the reckoning that will take place for all the people that are resurrected and all the people that are being judged, this reckoning will be quick. It will be a fast reckoning. Yani the people will be judged, yani their judgment will be fast. And so we're talking about billions upon billions upon billions upon billions of people that will all be judged on Judgment Day. These people, their judgment, their reckoning will be fast. It won't be slow. And so had the speech of Allah been sounds and letters, then the judgment of all of these people would have taken a long time. Yani, for those people to be judged, what does it mean they'll be judged? It means that they're going to be questioned. Why did you do this? Why did you say this? Why did you do that? Why did you not do that? Why did you lie? Why did you kill? Etc. For every single person, for their whole entire life, for all the decisions that they made. So if it was the case that it was with letters and a language, then it would take a long time. It is as was narrated in the Sahih Hadith narrated by Al-Bukhari, ما من أحد منكم إلا سيكلمه ربه يوم القيامة بلا ترجمان ولا حاجب. And so the case is that on Judgment Day we know that Allah Ta'ala will enable the people who are being judged to hear His eternal and everlasting attribute, which is not a sound. So that means that those people, they will hear the attribute of Allah, which is not a sound. The hadith means there is not one of you except that Allah will enable him to hear His kalam on Judgment Day, without an intermediary. Yani, the people, they will hear the kalam of Allah, which is not a sound, letter, or language. So a person that they have the poison of anthropomorphism in their heart, they might say to you, to the Sunni Muslim, how could you say about something that it is being heard that is not a sound? We tell them that the validator for something to be heard is that the thing exists. And Allah Ta'ala can make something that is not a sound heard. So that means that it's not necessary that in order for you to hear something that it's a sound. And it's the norm upon which we're created in this world and in this universe and this existence that we're in. The norm is that we hear with our ear, etc., and we see with our eye, etc. But Allah Ta'ala can make you hear with your eye and see with your ear, for example. So it's not necessary that in order for you to hear something that it be a sound. So the position of Ahlul Sunnah is that Allah Ta'ala will make the creations that are being judged on Judgment Day, Allah Ta'ala will enable them to hear His eternal and everlasting attribute, which is not a sound, letter, or language. And there's not going to be any intermediary. What does that mean, intermediary? It means that there won't be, let's say, an angel that is sent to address the people, as is the case in many instances. Like there's the hadith that says that Allah Ta'ala will send an angel down to the first sky in the last third of the night every night, and that angel will call out, is there anyone seeking forgiveness so that they may be forgiven? Is there anyone who has a need that it may be fulfilled? Is there anyone that has a request so it will be given? So Allah Ta'ala sends an angel to call that out. So that's an example of what we mean by intermediary. That Allah Ta'ala will send an angel, and that angel will convey the words that Allah Ta'ala ordered him to convey. So that won't be the case on Judgment Day. On Judgment Day, all the people, they will be enabled to hear the eternal and everlasting speech of Allah, which is not a sound, letter, or language. So the proof for that is what we mentioned in the hadith. With the kalam, so everybody will be enabled to hear the attribute of Allah, which is not a sound, letter, or language. With the kalam that is not a letter or sound, and it is not created. It does not have a beginning or an end. Allah judges the creations, and they understand what they are asked about, and based on this interpretation, it is obligatory to interpret the verse, إِنَّمَا أَمْرُهُ إِذَا أَرَادَ شَيْئًا أَن يَقُولَ لَهُ كُن فَيَكُونَ. This verse is in Surah Yasin and in many other verses of and in many other chapters. It means that what Allah willed to exist, He makes it exist without any difficulty or toil. So the term kun fayakun is an expression that is referring to the fact that something that Allah willed to exist, that it will exist without any difficulty or toil. And there will be nothing that delays the existence of that thing. There is no fatigue or difficulty that applies to Allah, and the thing which Allah willed for it to exist does not get delayed to exist beyond the time that Allah willed for it to exist in. This is the meaning of the verse, and it does not mean that Allah says kun, 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 which means be, as many times as there are creations, and for every creation that creates. So this is the issue, that the Wahhabis, the false Salafis, that they run into, because they take the Quran literal. So according to them, it has to be that this is their claim. If they say that Allah Ta'ala speaks with a letter or a language, that means according to them, this verse, they have to say, or it means according to them, that every time that a creation exists, that Allah speaks with a language, the words kun, 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 every time. And that is absurd. And the Islamic creed does not come with absurdities. The Islamic creed does not bring absurdities. Rather, the expression أَن يَقُولَ لَهُ كُن فَيَكُونَ was mentioned because the term kun in regards to the human is the easiest thing. The human pronounces this word without fatigue. 2 letters, the kaf and the noon, are easy for the human. That is, just as this expression is easy for the tongue of the creation, it is easy for Allah to create everything. All these creations, Allah created them without difficulty and without toil. Furthermore, every moment, Allah creates uncountable creations. Every moment, every day, Allah makes many creations die and makes many creations come to life, and makes many creations sick and makes many creations healthy. And every day He makes the rain fall to the earth. There is not a day among the days of the year except that the rain is falling to the earth. By His eternal and everlasting will and His eternal and everlasting power and knowledge, Allah creates this entire universe. The verse in the Quran, إِنَّمَا أَمْرُهُ إِذَا أَرَادَ شَيْئًا أَن يَقُولَ لَهُ كُن فَيَكُونَ. This is what it means. It does not mean, as the Wahhabis and some of the ignorant people claim, that Allah utters and pronounces the term kun with a kaf and a noon with the same number as the creations. The synopsis is that the being of Allah is eternal and everlasting, and likewise His life is eternal and everlasting. It is not subject to interruptions. Likewise His speech, His hearing, His sight, that is, His hearing of the hearable things and His seeing of the seeable things, is not created, and it is not subject to interruption, addition, or subtraction. The most important matter of the religion is having the correct creed. Hence, the one who has the correct creed, if he dies steadfast upon it, avoiding the kufr of the tongue, of action, and of belief, then such a person will inevitably enter paradise, even if he had sins as big as mountains. As for the one who does not have the correct creed, his deeds will not be accepted, like prayer, fasting, hajj, zakah, and Quran recitation and dhikr. All of that will not be accepted from him. The scholars said the worship is not accepted except after knowing what befits and what does not befit the worshipped, yani Allah. Furthermore, among the beliefs of Ahlul Sunnah is that Allah forgives the sins of the Muslims if He wills, even if that Muslim dies without repentance, even if he dies while being immersed in sin without repentance. Hence, the one who ruled with other than the revealed law because of a bribe or kinship or friendship, we do not say about him that he is a non-Muslim. We do not say like the brotherhood, so-called brotherhood party says. According to them, if the ruler, the president of a country, rules with other than the book of Allah, even if it were in one case, the president becomes a non-Muslim, and the subjects, all of them, according to them, become non-Muslims, except the one who rebels against them. This is invalid. Rather, the one who commits kufr is the one who says it is permissible to judge with other than the revealed law. As for the one who does not deem that permissible, but rules with other than the revealed law, he does not commit kufr, rather he would be sinful. So here the Shaykh, rahimahullah, he goes into explaining a case regarding this group of people that they call themselves the Muslim Brotherhood, and it's not permissible to call them that because they are not Muslims, so you can't call them the Muslim Brotherhood. So the case with them is that among the misguided beliefs that they believe is that they claim that if a person lives in a secular country and does not actively start a revolution or bears arms against the government or fights to overthrow the government, if they're not actively doing that, and they're just a Muslim that's living within that secular country, they claim that that Muslim is a kafir, and that he is permissible to be killed, and that his possessions and his money are permissible to be taken. So they come out of Egypt, these people. So they believe that, they say that. And they believe that if the ruler of a country, if he rules with the secular law, they judge him as a kafir automatically. So those so-called Brotherhood Party that consider the Muslims to be non-Muslims because they live under the rulership of a ruler who rules with other than the revealed law, those people appeared in Egypt some 60 years ago. Yani that's at the time that this original lesson was given. So by now I'll say, I don't have a date for this one. So let's say, I'll say maybe 80 years ago. Could be. And let's put it at 70. We'll say 20 years then. This lesson was given 20 years ago. So we'll put it at, 10 years ago. Let's put it at 70. But anyway, yani, within like most recent history. Before them, by 1,000 years, a sect appeared that said, just like those say, that the king, if he rules with other than the revealed law, he commits kufr, and the subjects also commit kufr. Later, this sect became extinct. Then Sayyid Qutb came about 60 years ago and made that religion. Yani, there was a misguided group that existed 1,000 years ago that they said that if a ruler, if he rules with secular law instead of the Islamic law, that makes him a kafir automatically, yani without any detail, and that whoever is a constituent or whoever lives in that land as a Muslim, and he doesn't like go by, let's say, what that ruler goes by, he just is a Muslim living in that country or that land, and he doesn't actively rebel against that Muslim ruler who rules by a secular law, then according to that group from 1,000 years ago, they say that Muslim also blasphemes. He becomes a kafir without any detail. So this person, Sayyid Qutb, he took it and ran with it. And he took that old thing from 1,000 years ago and he applied it to Egypt, to the situation in Egypt. And as you know, and if you look at the history of Egypt, that what they've been through, they have a bloody history because of this so-called Brotherhood group. They call themselves the Muslim Brotherhood, and they shed a lot of Muslims' blood. They caused a lot of Muslims to be unjustly imprisoned and thrown in dungeons. They caused a lot of Muslims to be unjustly imprisoned because they were unjustly accused of planning terrorist acts. So yeah, these people are the ones that they commit terrorist acts against the government because they claim that whoever lives in a country or a land that rules by the secular law, and you don't automatically take up arms against that government, they claim that you become a kafir by that. Na'udhu billah. Which is blasphemy, of course. Sayyid Qutb, nowadays, he has followers here, yani where the place where the lesson was given, which I don't know where that was. And in all of Europe, America, in the Arab lands, they have a presence there. Among them are those who were in Algeria, who used to murder babies, women, children, and old men. We judge them as non-Muslims because they believe that killing whoever is not with them is permissible and there is no sin for it. Rather, they consider it rewardable. Na'udhu billah. They consider the unjust killing of Muslims to be rewardable. Na'udhu billah. They consider killing of whoever is not with them as rewardable, and they do not consider it forbidden. Had they considered it forbidden, they would not have committed kufr. If the Muslim kills another Muslim unjustly, he does not commit blasphemy, kufr. Rather, if he deems killing the Muslim unjustly as lawful, he commits kufr at that point. If he kills the Muslim unjustly, he would be committing the biggest sin after blasphemy, kufr, if he does not commit blasphemy, and he does not commit kufr because of that. Yani, there's a difference between committing a sin, like killing, like murdering unjustly, and between legitimizing the sin. So if someone commits a sin, that by itself doesn't take them out of Islam. Like if a Muslim drinks alcohol, that by itself doesn't take him out of Islam. If a Muslim commits zina, that by itself doesn't take him out of Islam. If a Muslim, let's say, doesn't fast a day of Ramadan, that by itself doesn't take him out of Islam. If a Muslim takes riba money, that by itself doesn't take him out of Islam. If a Muslim steals or robs, this doesn't take him out of Islam by itself. But if he says that fornication is halal, it takes him out of Islam. If he says drinking alcohol is halal, then he gets taken out of Islam. If he believes that killing someone unjustly is halal, then he gets taken out of Islam. So there's a difference between doing the sin and legitimizing the sin. Furthermore, among the most important cases in the creed, after knowing what befits Allah and His Messenger, and what does not befit Allah and what does not befit His Messenger, is the belief that no one creates except Allah. Allah is the one who creates the movements of the slaves and their utterances, their glances, their movements, and their stillness. All of this is created by Allah only. The slaves do not create. The slaves act. It is said that they do things, and it is not said that they create things. Allah creates, and the slave does actions. The one who walks deliberately to a place, or speaks on purpose, or extends his hand to something on purpose, Allah is the only one who creates his movements, and the slave does not create them. This case, that Allah is the only creator, is among the most important cases of the creed. So here we see another case which is confirming that Allah is the only one who brings the creations from non-existence into existence. And Allah Ta'ala is the only one who makes things enter into existence. Not us, not the slaves. So when we walk, we're not creating our footsteps. When we speak, we're not creating our words or the sounds. When we, let's say, cut an apple in half, we're not creating the cutting. But those actions that we take, and those footsteps that we're taking, they are attributed to us in the sense that we are accountable for those actions, even though we didn't create them. Even though Allah Ta'ala is the one that created our actions, still we are accountable for those actions, even though we didn't create them. So that's what the Shaykh is saying there. So that marks the end of lesson 61, which is part 1 of this lesson. Now lesson 62, which is the final lesson in the book. And mashallah, we've had a long journey. We will finish this book tonight, mashallah, and then we'll see what book we will go with next. The Kalam of Allah, part 2. Thereafter, in the book Al-Asma' was-Sifat by Al-Bayhaqi, Al-Bukhari said, the movement of the creations, their sounds, their acquisitions, and their writing are all created. As for the Qur'an, that is the attribute of Allah, it is not created. So the word Qur'an, it is said, absolutely without restriction, and used to mean the attribute of Allah, not referring to the letters and sounds that we recite. So the word Qur'an has more than one usage, in the religious context. So we say Qur'an about the attribute of Allah, which is in this case is not the revealed terms, and we say Qur'an about the words that we recite and the sounds that we make. So Al-Bayhaqi in Al-Asma' was-Sifat, he quotes Al-Bukhari, and he says, I'll read the Arabic. The Al-Bayhaqi, he says, the Al-Bukhari said, حركاتهم وأصواتهم وأكسابهم وكتابتهم مخلوقة فأما القرآن المبين المثبت في المصاحف المستور في الكتب الموعي في القلوب فهو كلام الله تعالى ليس بخلق. So Al-Bukhari mentioned this in his book خلق أفعال العباد in the chapter أفعال العباد. So I'll continue reading in Arabic. لا شك الحرف والصوت معنى من معاني البشر مخلوقة لله فلا يجوز عقلا ولا شرعا أن يكون الله يتكلم بحروف وأصوات إما بلغة العرب وإما بلغة غيرها كالسريانية لأنه لو كان كذلك لكان مثلنا. So continuing on, As for the Quran, that is the attribute of Allah, it is not created. As for the terms referring to the attribute of Allah, the terms that are confirmed in the book of the Quran and written in the books and understood in the hearts, they are expressions referring to the attribute of Allah, which is eternal and everlasting and not created. So this is the meaning of what Al-Bukhari said in his book Khalqu Af'al al-Ibad. So the attribute of Allah is not created. And so we call that Quran. This is called Quran. And the words that we recite, the sounds and letters that are in the book of the Quran, this is also called Quran. And we say that those sounds and letters are created. We don't say that the Arabic language is the attribute of Allah. We don't say that these sounds and this Arabic language and these inflections, these harakat, we don't say that that is the attribute of Allah. No. The author said, there is no doubt that the letter and the sound are attributes of the creation created by Allah. And it's not valid for someone to say that the Arabic words and letters that we recite, that these are eternal. It's not valid. It can't be valid. And no matter what they say or how they try to make that fit, they cannot say it. Because it's something that you observe by your physical senses. And literally, when you say Bismillah, from the Quran, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, the ba sound starts and ends. Then the sin sound starts and ends. Then the meme sound starts and ends. Then Lafzul Jalala starts and ends. Then the Ra of Ar-Rahman starts and ends, etc. Each letter starts and ends until you get to the end. So of course they are created. Of course they are attributes of creation. So we don't say that is the attribute of Allah. And the words that we recite are not the attribute of Allah. Hence, it is not permissible intellectually nor religiously for Allah to be attributed with speaking with letters and sounds, whether it was in the Arabic language or another language like the Syriac language, because had He been attributed with that, He would have been similar to us. Imam Abu Ja'far al-Tahawi said, whoever attributes to Allah an attribute of the humans is a non-Muslim. He said this clarifying the creed of Ahlul Sunnah among the Salaf, and he was also from the Salaf. It is not his personal opinion. Furthermore, the statement of Al-Bukhari is mentioned by many Ash'aris and Maturidis in their books, and they do not mean by that the attribute of Allah dwells in the hearts of the Muslims or in the lines of the Mus'hafs, because the relocation of an attribute from the attributed thing is inconceivable. It is not valid intellectually, especially the attribute of Allah who is eternal and everlasting. This is because it is intellectually necessary for His attributes to be eternal and everlasting, because the being is eternal and everlasting. So a person can't say that the attribute of Allah that is eternal and everlasting, and it would be blasphemous to say that the attribute of Allah that is eternal and everlasting was transplanted into the book of the Quran, or it was transplanted into your heart, or was transplanted onto your tongue, or was transplanted into your hearing. You cannot say that. Because you cannot say that the attribute of Allah separates from Allah. The attributes of Allah are neither, we don't say about them that they are Him or other than Him. So that's what the scholars of Ahlul Sunnah, they said. That the attributes of Allah, they are not Allah and they are not other than Allah. Is that something that you can imagine? No, but it is something that is intellectually acceptable, rationally acceptable. Because neither separation nor any being composed are applicable to Allah. Neither of these things are applicable to Allah. You cannot say about Allah that He is composed of things. And you cannot say about, let's say, the attributes of Allah, that they are other than Allah. like how these Wahhabis and the people who liken Allah to the creation, like how they say, for example, that Allah is, na'udhu billah, they say Allah is separated from the universe. So they make, a gap between Allah and the universe, because they don't want to say that Allah is inside. So they say, if He's not inside, then He has to be outside. We say inside and outside, they don't apply to Allah. It only applies to something that is a body. And Allah Ta'ala is not a body. He said, there is something that makes it closer to the understanding, and it is that if the person writes the term Allah, and it is said, what is that? And he replies, Allah. It is not understood from this that the being of Allah is these letters, the shapes of these letters, the alif, the lam, the alif, that is pronounced and not written, and the ha. Rather, what is understood is that these shapes are an expression referring to the exalted being of Allah, yani referring to the reality of Allah. As for the one who believes that Allah speaks as we speak, pronouncing the first ba, then the sin, then the mim, until the last of the letters of the basmalah, this results in saying that the being of Allah is created because whatever has a created attribute is itself created. So, this is a rule. This is also something that nobody can negate. We don't accept the gaslighting on that. If somebody says about something that it changes, then automatically by them saying that, they're saying it has a beginning. Because if something is existing as a part of it, if something is attributed with something that has a beginning and an end, like for example, us. Right now you're sitting down and then you're going to stand up. So your sitting ended and your standing began. So since that's the case with you, I know for sure you had a beginning. I didn't have to be there to witness you being born, that you had a beginning. I know you have a beginning because you move. So your movement, you're going to be still sometimes and you're going to move sometimes. So when you're still and then you start moving, your stillness ended and your movement began. You are a series of events. So if somebody says that about Allah, then they're saying that Allah has a beginning. If somebody says that Allah changes, then they're saying that Allah is a creation. Because only creations change. So this is another thing that the Wahhabis do, and especially those that are more into philosophy, like Ibn Taymiyyah, he is their favorite philosopher. They say this about Allah. They say it with no shame. They say that changes happen to Allah. These are their words. It's not me exaggerating what they say or misquoting what they say or misrepresenting what they say. They say changes occur to Allah. That is their wording. Na'udhu billah. So that's why they believe that Allah speaks Arabic. That's why they believe that Allah speaks Arabic. And they believe that Allah stays quiet whenever He wills. Na'udhu billah. So there's people nowadays, of course, that they are, for some reason, they are Wahhabi sympathizers, and that's, I'm just using a very soft term, right? A very soft term. They sympathize with the Wahhabis, and they say, look, whatever they say, but in reality, they're not saying that Allah is like us. They say, but they're not saying that Allah is like us, because the Wahhabi will tell you Allah speaks Arabic. Allah is quiet whenever He wills. Allah comes down physically to the first heaven. Allah has a foot and He puts it in hellfire. Allah has a hand and eyes and a face. And Allah runs, and Allah wears clothes. Yes, they say that Allah wears clothes. And then they say, but we don't say that Allah is like us. Na'udhu billah. They say Allah is located above the throne. We're really, really high above in a high altitude. And then they say, but we don't say that He's like us. They say Allah is in a place, but He's not like us, they say. They say that Allah is established on the throne, but they say He's not like us. They say all these things, and then they say that Allah is not like us. Do you know what that's called? That's called the contradiction in terms. They say, but we don't know how. We say the how is similarity to Allah. Ahlul Sunnah, the Sunni Muslim, they say Allah has no how. So there's a difference. They say with a how, but we can't imagine it. We say without a how. So there's a difference. They actually attribute a how to Allah. There's one Wahhabi book. They say, the title of the book is confirming that Allah has a limit. Naam, that's the name of the book. That's the title of the book. But they say it's a limit that only Allah knows. Na'udhu billah. They think that saves them, So the ones who say about Allah that He has a limit, but then they want to turn around and say, but we say He's not like us. They say in a way that befits His majesty. Na'udhu billah. If someone came and said that Allah is weak, but not like us, would anybody accept it? No. If someone came and said, Allah has a son, but not like us, will they accept it? No, they won't accept it. But that's what the Christians, they say. They do say that. When you corner them and you tell the Christians, whatever you say has a son, whatever you say has children is a creation, they say, no, it's not like us. It's not like when you and me have children. They say, no, this is what they say. They say, God did not have intercourse with Mary. They say it's not like us. The Christians believe that. They say that. Do they make an excuse for them? No, they don't make an excuse for them. Na'udhu billah. We say Allah exists without a how. Without. Not that He has one and we don't know what it is. Not that He has one and we can't know about it. That's not what we say. So it's a big difference. And they admit that openly, with no shame. Na'udhu billah. So when we write the word Allah on the board, and somebody asks, what is that? And you answer truthfully, Allah, it doesn't mean that those letters are what we worship. Those letters are referring to the one who we worship. So the Quran that we read, the Arabic words and sounds and letters that we read, those are not the attribute of Allah. They're referring to the attribute of Allah. It's a very easy way to understand. Remember, this is a rule. The Sunni creed does not bring absurdities. The Aqidah does not come, the creed of Islam does not bring things that are intellectually absurd. Al-Islam wal-Shar'u wal-Aqidah وما أوحي إلى النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم لا يأتي إلا بمجوزات العقول بمجوزات العقل لا يأتي بشيء يكون مستحيلا عقلا لا يأتي بشيء مستحيلا عقلا الشرع لا يأتي بشيء مستحيل عقلا. The religion, what's revealed, the creed, does not bring anything that is intellectually impossible. It does not bring anything that is absurd. Like what's an example of something that is absurd? Like what Ibn Taymiyyah says. He says that Allah changes. He says that Allah is eternal and that He changes. So he attributes change and occurrence to Allah, and he says that it's eternal. And we know that about Allah, that He is the only one who's eternal. This is the creed by consensus. And then he says about something that's a creation like the Harish, or the kind of the universe, which is something that has a beginning, that is something that its existence began. He says about that it's eternal. This is absurd. He says that the throne always existed with Allah, or time always existed with Allah, or the place always existed with Allah. That's what he says. So that's absurd. So that's not part of the Islamic creed. Or like here, like to say, it's going to come. As for the one who believes that Allah speaks as we speak, pronouncing first the ba, then the sin, then the mim, until the last of the letters of the basmalah, this results in saying that the being of Allah is created, because whatever has a created attribute is itself created. So the one who says that these letters that we recite are the attribute of Allah itself, that is absurd. Because those letters have a beginning. Those letters have an end. And Allah has no beginning and no end. You can't attribute a beginning and an end to Allah. You can't. You can't say that that Allah is attributed with something that begins and ends. Because by saying that, it would necessitate to say about Allah that He has a beginning. This is among the meaning of clearing Allah from all imperfection, which is proven by the verse in Surah Ash-Shura. لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٍ. So as a Sunni Muslim, all we need to refute the Wahhabi, the body worshipper, the likener, the anthropomorphist, the corporealist, the one who attributes bodily attributes to Allah, the one who believes that Allah is sitting on the throne, the one who believes that Allah is established on the throne, the one who believes that Allah is hovering above the throne, the one who believes that Allah is rising above the throne, this person, he is going against the ayah, لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٍ. All you need is that verse to refute them. Because لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٍ, it means there's absolutely nothing like Allah. There is no similarity between Allah and the creation in any way whatsoever. So when they say that Allah is in a place, and we're in a place, they can't say, oh, but it's not like us. Because being in a place is something that is only for creation. It's only for creations. Because the place itself has a beginning. Because the place itself is a creation. No one can come and say that the place is not created. No one can say that. Because you're in a place right now. So it exists in reality, not just in your imagination. The space that you're occupying, I cannot go and occupy that same space because you're in that place right now. This sentence, لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٍ, even though it is brief and its letters are few in number, it contains the all-inclusive negation of imperfection from being attributed to Allah. On top of that, not only from similarity, but also to say about Allah that He is located in a place, this is not praising Allah. To say about Allah that He is very, very high altitude, this is not praising Allah. It is not to say about Allah, it's not attributing perfection to Allah. So by saying that Allah is located in a place, this is attributing imperfection to Allah. And the ayah, لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٍ, negates all similarity and all imperfection. It is as if this sentence is the details that Ahlul Sunnah mentioned, that Allah is not attributed with color, limit, having a distance. He is not attributed with development or emotions. He is not attributed with being affected. And other than that, among what is mentioned about negating imperfection from being attributed to Allah, this is what the Maturidis and the Ash'aris have unanimously agreed upon, and they are Ahlul Sunnah, because Imam Abu Mansur and Abu al-Hasan al-Ash'ari radiyallahu anhuma became famous by having many affiliates to them, because they confirmed the creeds of Ahlul Sunnah with the intellectual and textual evidence, along with refuting the fallacies of the opposition and their attempts to cast doubt, like the Mu'tazila, the Mushabbiha, those who liken God to His creation, and their likes. Who are the Mushabbiha today? They are the Wahhabis. They are the ones who attribute similarity to Allah. Like we said, they say that Allah has a foot and He puts it in hellfire. They say that Allah runs. They say that Allah laughs. They say that Allah speaks with a language. They say that Allah has a voice. They say that Allah comes down physically to the first heaven. They say that Allah on Judgment Day will come and the angels will line up. They say that Allah is established on the throne or sitting on the throne. Some of them say sitting, some of them say established, some of them say rising above, some of them say hovering. They have differences among them. But have 100% certainty. Many of them, they say the word sitting. And their early Imams, they explicitly said sitting without any shame. They didn't try to hide it. They said, what is the meaning of istawa except sitting? Na'udhu billah. This is not, we didn't make this up about them. They said it. They're the ones who put it in their books. Na'udhu billah. So they are the ones who liken Allah to the creation. It doesn't help them or save them that they say, after they say that Allah has organs, and after they say that He's rising above the throne or settled on the throne or established on the throne, after they say all that, but then they say, we don't know how. Or they say, in a way that befits His majesty. It doesn't help. It doesn't help them. If someone were to say, Allah is ignorant in a way that befits His majesty, is that accepted? No. If someone said, Allah is weak, but not like the weak ones, is it accepted? No. If someone says, Allah is a creation, but not like us, will that be accepted? No. So the same thing about saying that Allah is located above the throne. Giving Allah a place, and He's saying that He's in a place, that is like saying that Allah has a son. That is like saying that Allah is weak. That is like saying that Allah is imperfect. Because the creation, the place, the creation, it has a beginning. So attributing that to Allah is imperfection. And He's saying that Allah is in a very high altitude, that is not praising Allah. Ibn Makki authored a poem for Salahuddin al-Ayyubi, and so it was called the Salahiyya Creed. The author explicitly mentions that it is impossible for the attribute of kalam of Allah to be sounds and letters. Furthermore, Salahuddin ordered for it to be taught to the old and young. Salahuddin was a scholar, and he had experience in the science of hadith. He used to attend the sessions of the knowledge of hadith, in which the hadiths were narrated with the connected chain. He also memorized the Quran and the book At-Tanbih in the Shafi'i school of law, and he memorized the book Al-Hamasa. As for some people among the Hanbalis, they said that Allah speaks with a sawt, and they mean by that a voice, that has no beginning and no end, but this is something that is against the sound mind. Yes, the Wahhabis, they believe that Allah speaks with a voice, and then they claim that they're not likening Allah to the creation. Na'udhu billah. Everything that was mentioned in the text, which some people might mistakenly get the impression from that, the eternal and everlasting attribute of kalam of Allah, is possible for it to be sounds and letters, is interpreted to mean the revealed terms. So anytime that the term kalamullah, the kalam of Allah, or the term Quran is used in the Quran, where someone might get the impression that it means sounds and letters, referring to the attribute of Allah, in fact does not refer to the attribute of Allah, rather it refers to the revealed terms, what we recite, which are the Arabic language, like the revealed terms of the Quran, or in the Syriac language, like the revealed terms of the Injil, or in the Hebrew language, like the revealed terms of the original Torah. The revealed terms are called kalam of Allah. The revealed terms are called like that because they are an expression referring to the attribute of Allah. The attribute of speech of Allah is called kalam of Allah, and the revealed terms are called kalam of Allah. The attribute of Allah, which is eternal and everlasting, it's called kalam of Allah. The term kalam is used referring to it. And the words that we recite, that are sounds and letters and a language that has a beginning and has an end, that is also called kalam of Allah. So the term kalam is used to refer to the attribute, and it's used to refer to the words that we recite. It's used with those two meanings. What was narrated from Imam Ahmad that he said, whoever says my pronunciation of the Quran is created is a Jahmi, is not true about him. فهذا قول ينسبونه إلى الإمام أحمد بن حنبل رضي الله عنه وهو لا تصح نسبة ذلك إليه. فسنقرأه الآن في العربية. ماذا قال؟ وإنما أوكي أيوة أوكي وما روي يعني لا ما ثبت إسنادا. وما روي عن الإمام أحمد أنه قال من قال لفظي بالقرآن مخلوق فهو جهمي ما ثبت لا تصح نسبة هذا القول إلى الإمام أحمد رضي الله عنه، لأن الوهابي في أيامنا هو يحب أن يأتي بهذا القول المزعوم المنسوب إلى الإمام أحمد يحب أن يأتي به للأشعري أو للماتريدي أو للسني الذي يقول كلام الله تعالى ليس حرفا ولا صوتا ولا لغة. هو يريد أن يأتي يعني بهذا الكلام الذي نسب إلى الإمام أحمد، يعني الذي لم يثبت إسناده إليه، يحب أن يأتي به فيرميه إلى المسلم. فنحن نقول ما ثبت. لكن أحمد كان يكره أن يقال لفظي بالقرآن مخلوق، وكان يكره أن يقول لفظي بالقرآن غير مخلوق. وهذا يدل على أن الاعتقاد الذي وقر في قلبه هو أن كلام الله الذاتي ليس حرفا ولا صوتا، وإنما كره ذلك لأنه قد يتطرق أفهام بعض الناس من عبارة لفظي بالقرآن مخلوق إلى أن القرآن مخلوق مطلقا، وهذا هو المحظور. وإلا فأي عاقل يشك بأن قول الرجل بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين إلى الأخير، أي عاقل يشك أنه مخلوق؟ لفظ الشخص بالقرآن من يشك أنه مخلوق، أليس هو الشخص القارئ مخلوقا ثم قراءته حادثة كانت بعد عدم ثم تنقضي؟ من يشك أن هذا مخلوق، من يشك أن هذا مخلوق؟ هذا يعني سؤال إنكاري. من يشك أنه مخلوق؟ يعني لا أحد يشك. يعني so what Imam Ahmad said, let's continue. It is not true about him. Yani Imam Ahmad, he did not say whoever says my pronunciation of the Quran is created is a Jahmi. He did not say that. However, Imam Ahmad did not like it to be said my pronunciation of the Quran is created, and he did not like it to be said my pronunciation of the Quran is not created. This proves that the creed that was firm in his heart is that the attribute of kalam of Allah is not a letter or a sound. The reason why he hated that to be said is because some people, when they hear the term my pronunciation of the Quran is created, might think that the Quran is created without restriction, and that is not allowed. Otherwise, what sane person would doubt that a Muslim saying the Basmalah and the Hamdalah, yani that the person saying Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim and Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, and after that to the end, what sane person would doubt that this is created? Who would doubt that pronouncing the revealed terms of the Quran is created? Is it not the case that the person reciting the Quran is created and that his recitation has a beginning? It began after being non-existent. Who would doubt that this is created? Imam Ahmad does not have such a low level of comprehension. Imam Ahmad does not reject this saying for its meaning. Rather, he wanted to shut the door on anybody saying the Quran is created without restriction. The meaning of the statement, so what it means is that Imam Ahmad, when he disliked for him to be, let's say, to say the statement, my pronunciation of the Quran is not created, or my pronunciation of the Quran is created, and he disliked to say both of those things. He did not want to say it so it's not used as a weapon against the common Muslim. Because then that would be taken, let's say, what Imam Ahmad said, and someone would use it in a way that would distort the meaning for a common Muslim, someone who's not trained in how the scholars speak. And so that person would use Imam Ahmad's name to try and justify their bad creed, to try and justify their bad belief. So when we say that Al-Imam Ahmad, that he did not like to say that doesn't mean that he was saying when you recite Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim it's not created. No, because we're saying what sane person would deny that? The meaning of the statement about Tahawi, minhu bada bila kayfiyatin qawla, is that the attribute of speech of Allah is not a letter or a sound, and it does not contain bringing forward or delaying. Had the attribute of kalam of Allah been a letter and a sound, like the utterance of Jibreel and our Master Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he would not have needed to say bila kayfiyatin, without a how. So let the Wahhabis, the Mushabbiha who liken Allah to His creation, infer a different meaning to the saying of At-Tahawi without a how. Because the uttered word, there is no doubt that it has a how. So that's basically a rhetorical challenge, a binding argument. The Shaykh is saying, let the Wahhabis try to come up with a different meaning for when Al-Tahawi said, bila kayfiyya. Because bila kayfiyatin means without a how. And to say that Allah Ta'ala speaks with sounds, that is exactly a how. So you can't say with sounds without a how, because a sound is a how. And we negate the how from being attributed to Allah. Rather, he meant by his statement, بِلَا كَيْفِيَّةٍ قَوْلًا مِنْهُ بَدَى بِلَا كَيْفِيَّةٍ قَوْلًا, that the expressions in the Qur'an refer to the eternal speech of Allah, and this speech is not a letter or a sound, and it does not contain bringing forward or delaying. Furthermore, his saying after that means that the attribute of Allah is called kalam of Allah bil-haqiqah, non-figuratively, in the Islamic context. This is because al-haqiqah is the non-figurative, and the non-figurative terms are linguistic, rational, and Islamic. And so we say, for example, the term as-salah. In the language, the reality of that word is supplication. As-salah في لغة العرب معناها لغة الدعاء. So if you're speaking in the linguistic context and you say as-salah, then the reality of that word is du'a, making a request, supplicating. But if you use the word as-salah in the religious context, then the reality of that word is what? The format of the prayers that we do. And then when we stand up, we say Allahu Akbar, facing the Qibla, recite al-Fatiha, go to ruku', go to sujood, come up from sujood, and all the way to the end until we say Assalamu alaikum. If we're speaking in the religious context and we say as-salah, then the literal meaning of it is the format of the prayer that we do. So the terms, they have the literal or the reality of those terms. They exist in both the linguistic context, the rational context, and the Islamic context. What is narrated about Imam Ahmad that he said, Al-Qur'anu haythu yusrafu ghayru makhluq, means that it is not said about the Qur'an that it is created, even if the person believes that the revealed terms are created. The scholars avoided saying this sentence, the Qur'an is created, without any context, because it is feared that a person might get the wrong impression and think that what is meant is the eternal speech. Because in the Arabic language, the term Qur'an, and it is the first usage of it is the eternal attribute of Allah in the Arabic language. When you say Qur'an in the Arabic language, linguistically, the first usage is referring to the attribute of Allah. The second usage is referring to the words that we recite. Had Allah recited the Qur'an just as our Master Jibreel recited the Qur'an and our Master Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, there would not be any meaning to the verse in Surah Al-Qiyamah, فَإِذَا قَرَأْنَاهُ فَاتَّبِعْ قُرْآنَهُ, because it is not valid for its meaning to be that Allah recites the Qur'an upon Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam just as the teacher reads on his student, making him hear the letters one after another. He would start with something, then it would finalize, start with something, and then it would finalize until getting to the end. Rather, the meaning of فَإِذَا قَرَأْنَاهُ is that if Jibreel recites it upon the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam by the order of Allah. So here we see the term Qur'an was used, and it's referring to the words we recite, not referring to the attribute of Allah. And in Jibreel, he's not attributed with the attribute of Allah. So no one would say that Jibreel is attributed with the attribute of Allah. So this verse in Surah Al-Qiyamah, فَإِذَا قَرَأْنَاهُ فَاتَّبِعْ قُرْآنَهُ, is referring to the words that we recite. What's known in Arabic as al-lafdhul munazzal. The meaning of إِنَّمَا أَمْرُهُ إِذَا أَرَادَ شَيْئًا أَن يَقُولَ لَهُ كُن فَيَكُونَ is one of two interpretations. The first is that if Allah wills for something to exist, it exists without any expenditure or difficulty on Him. We'll read that in Arabic as well because it's very important. ومعنى إنما أمره إذا أراد شيئا أن يقول له كن فيكون أحد أمرين. الأول أنه إذا شئنا وجود شيء يكون بلا كلفة ولا مشقة علينا، فهذا المعنى الأول الذي نذكره. ولفظ كن خفيف على لسان العبد، فعبر الله تعالى في القرآن بهذه العبارة للدلالة على أن الله تعالى يوجد مراداته بلا كلفة ولا مشقة، لأن هذه الكلمة ما فيها كلفة ومشقة على العباد إذا نطقوا بها. هذا هو المعنى. يعني الله تعالى عبر، يعني جعل في القرآن هذه العبارة كن فيكون للدلالة على أن الله تعالى يوجد مراداته بلا كلفة ولا مشقة. So the first meaning that we mentioned is that the term kun fayakun, it means that Allah makes things exist without any toil, difficulty, or expenditure. Yani without any process of that, and that being difficult. The term kun is light upon the tongue of the slaves, and so Allah revealed that term in the Quran to indicate that Allah makes whatever He wills exist without expenditure or difficulty. This is because this word contains no expenditure or difficulty upon the slaves when they say it. And for you to say kun, does it require difficulty? No. The second meaning is that kun is an expression referring to the eternal decree of something to exist. It is called al-hukm at-takwini, the decree of creating. Some people, they get affected when they see someone say يَتَكَلَّمُ مَتَى شَاء وَكَيْفَ مَا شَاء, as it is narrated from some of the Salaf. And so this person might not properly understand what it means, and he might interpret that sentence to mean that Allah utters words with His eternal attribute. He starts with it and He concludes, and He starts and He concludes, just as the humans do. And this is the epitome of likening Allah to the creations. Rather, the real meaning is that Allah reveals the revealed terms of the revealed book, and those revealed terms are expressions referring to the eternal and everlasting kalam of Allah. And so that means that Allah reveals a book whenever He wills and to whomever He wills amongst the prophets. So the term يَتَكَلَّمُ مَتَى شَاء وَكَيْفَ مَا شَاء is referring to al-lafz al-munazzal, is referring to the revealed terms and not the attribute of Allah. And that's what the Wahhabis, they do. They apply that to the attribute of Allah because they don't properly understand the speech of the Salaf. Because why? Because they read on their own without any chains of narration, and they claim to understand what the Salaf are saying. They have no connection to the Salaf whatsoever, because any way, any chain, or any isnad to get through the Salaf has to go through Al-Ash'ari or Al-Maturidi. There's no way around it. The person whom Allah has granted the proper understanding suffices with the verse لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٍ, because it contains the meaning of the absolute negation of all imperfection. Likewise, the one who says that Allah speaks Arabic as an attribute of His being is saying that the language of Allah is Arabic, and the Arabic language is created. Yani the one who says that Allah speaks Arabic, he's clearly attributing a created attribute to Allah. Likewise, if he says that Allah speaks Syriac as an attribute of His being, he would be saying that the language of Allah is Syriac, and likewise the Hebrew. That creed is misguidance, yani it's blasphemy. The person would not be a Muslim if they believe that Allah speaks with letters and sounds. He would not be a Muslim. He cannot be a Muslim. They claim that Allah speaks in Syriac, Arabic, and Hebrew. What is that? Isn't this an indication of being a creation? Yani that's rhetorical. Of course it is an indication of being a creation. And Allah Ta'ala knows best. By that we have finished the book, all 300 plus pages of the Collection of Goodness, Volume 1. I hope that everyone that followed along and that had the book benefited from that. There's many proofs, many evidences in these books, many beneficial things. Now we'll see, inshallah, what is the next book that we will choose. We're willing to take suggestions. Comment in the comments your suggestions. We'll take it into consideration. We can do the biography of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We can do seerah. We can do tafsir. We can do explanations of hadith. We can do Islamic law. We can delve deeper into the creed. We can do refutations. We can do how to respond to the people of misguidance. Whatever, and let's see what you guys suggest, inshallah. If there are no questions, we'll conclude.